The Grand Interstellar Summit was the largest gathering of intelligent species in the known universe. Every cycle, leaders, diplomats, and scientists from across the galaxy arrived at the floating city of Varlon Prime, a massive station orbiting a blue giant star. It was here that alliances were made, trade agreements were signed, and sometimes wars were avoided. Among the countless species attending, humans were still considered newcomers. Although humanity had made its mark through intelligence, resilience, and adaptability, many older civilizations still viewed them with curiosity or caution. Captain Elias Carter walked through the brightly lit halls of the summit, his polished black uniform standing out among the colorful robes and armored suits of other species. As an ambassador for Earth, his job was simple: form connections, gather knowledge, and ensure humanity had a seat at the galactic table. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. A soft voice called out to him from the side. "Are you meeting with all species? Will you do it with me?" Elias turned, surprised. Before him stood a young alien woman, her deep violet skin glowing faintly under the artificial lights. Her eyes, bright silver, reflected his image like liquid mirrors. Her long, silver-white hair flowed down her back, and her delicate features carried both curiosity and hesitation. She was clearly not human. But what species was she? Elias hesitated, quickly running through his mental catalog of known species. She was not from any of the common races attending the summit. He had never seen an alien like her before. "You'll have to be a little clearer," Elias said, keeping his tone friendly. "Who are you? And what do you mean by meeting?" The alien girl glanced around nervously before stepping closer. "My name is Zisha," she whispered. "I am Elver." Elias frowned. That name sounded familiar, but not in a good way. The Elver were practically myths. There were rumors about a mysterious species that had vanished from galactic politics thousands of years ago. Some said they had isolated themselves by choice. Others believed they had been forced into hiding. And now one of them was standing right in front of him. "I need your help," Zisha continued, her silver eyes searching his face. "My people, we wish to return, but the galaxy fears us. You are a human, an outsider. You speak with many species. You can help us be seen." Elias studied her carefully. It was true that humans had a unique role in the galactic community. Unlike older civilizations that held grudges or alliances spanning centuries, humans were neutral, new enough that they had no ancient enemies, but strong enough that no one ignored them. Still, this was dangerous. If he accepted Zisha's request, he could be stepping into a political war far older than humanity itself. Before he could respond, a deep voice interrupted. "Step away from her, human." Elias turned to see a towering reptilian alien standing a few feet away. It was a Velkar, a species known for their brute strength and aggressive nature. His scaled armor gleamed under the summit lights, and his yellow eyes locked onto Zisha with pure hostility. "She is Elver," the Velkar growled. "Their kind has no place here. Leave before you make a mistake." Zisha tensed beside Elias, her hands clenched into fists. But she didn't say a word. Elias could feel the tension rising. He had seen countless diplomatic negotiations, but this wasn't a debate. This was an old hatred resurfacing. He crossed his arms and looked up at the towering reptilian. "I wasn't aware the summit had a rule against speaking with certain species," Elias said coolly. The Velkar narrowed his eyes. "You don't know what you are dealing with, human." "Then maybe someone should explain it to me," Elias replied. "Because from where I'm standing, all I see is a young woman trying to be heard." The Velkar let out a low growl that didn't attack. Instead, he turned and stormed off, disappearing into the crowd. Elias exhaled, then looked back at Zisha. "I think you just made my job a lot harder," he muttered. A small smile appeared on her lips. "Then you will help me." Elias sighed. He should have walked away. But deep down, he knew he wouldn't. "All right, Zisha," he said. "Let's see what the galaxy is so afraid of." Elias Carter knew he had just stepped into something much bigger than a simple diplomatic request. As he walked through the towering halls of the Grand Interstellar Summit, Zisha moved beside him in silence. He could feel the weight of her presence, calm but tense, like someone who had been hiding for too long and wasn't sure if stepping into the light was the right choice. Humans were new to the galactic stage, but even Elias knew that when a species is feared, there's always a reason. And right now, he needed to know why the galaxy wanted to keep the Elver hidden. Finally, after weaving through the crowd of alien diplomats and officials, they reached a quieter section of the summit's guest quarters. Elias led Zisha into his assigned room, a sleek, modern space with a glass window overlooking the glowing nebula beyond. He turned to face her. "All right, no more riddles, no more vague requests. Tell me everything." Zisha hesitated for a moment. Then she stepped forward, folding her arms. Her silver eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw fear. "My people, we were once part of the galactic community," Zisha began. "Thousands of years ago, we stood alongside the greatest civilizations. But then, something changed." Elias leaned forward. "What happened?" "They decided we were too dangerous," she said softly. Elias frowned. "Dangerous how?" Zisha took a slow breath. "The Elver have a connection to quantum space. Our minds, they do not work like others. We can feel things beyond what most species understand. We can sense emotions, thoughts, sometimes even fragments of the future." Elias's eyebrows shot up. "You're telepathic." "Not exactly," she replied. "It is more complex. We do not control minds. We do not invade thoughts. But we understand the patterns of the universe in ways that others cannot." Elias rubbed his chin. "And the rest of the galaxy didn't like that." Zisha nodded. "They feared us. They said that our abilities made us untrustworthy, that we could manipulate events without anyone realizing it. But that was a lie." Elias crossed his arms. "If it was a lie, why did your people disappear?" Zisha hesitated again, as if she was holding something back. Then, quietly, she said, "Because we were betrayed." Elias's expression hardened. He had seen too many political games to ignore the weight in her words. This wasn't just about fear. This was about power. "Who betrayed you?" he asked. Zisha exhaled. "The Galactic Council. The same ones who run this summit." Elias cursed under his breath. If what Zisha was saying was true, then this wasn't just about introducing her people back into society. This was a direct challenge to the rulers of the galaxy. He walked toward the window, looking out at the countless ships arriving at the station. "If they really wanted to erase your people from history, why let you come here at all?" Zisha shook her head. "They do not know I am here." Elias turned back sharply. "Wait, you're telling me you snuck into the summit?" Zisha gave a small, nervous nod. "It was the only way. If I had announced myself, they would have refused me before I even had the chance to speak." Elias groaned, rubbing his face. "Fantastic. So now, not only am I helping a mysterious hidden species, but I'm also breaking about a dozen diplomatic protocols. I understand if you do not wish to continue," Zisha said quietly. "I will find another way." Elias sighed. He should walk away. But something about this situation didn't sit right with him. He had met plenty of politicians, leaders, and ambassadors. Most of them lied to protect their own power. Zisha, she wasn't a liar. And that meant the real liars were the ones running the galaxy. He turned back to her. "All right, let's say I believe you. What do you need me to do?" Zisha's silver eyes brightened slightly, a flicker of hope in them. "Introduce me. Let me speak at the summit. Let me show them that we are not what they fear." Elias ran a hand through his hair. "That's not going to be easy. Even if I get you in, the moment they realize who you are, they'll try to shut you down." "I know," she admitted, "but I have something they do not." Elias raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" Zisha stepped closer, lowering her voice. Proof. Elias stiffened. Proof of what? Zisha's expression turned serious. That the Galactic Council lied. That they did something terrible to my people, and that they have been hiding the truth for thousands of years. A long silence filled the room. Elias exhaled. He had no idea what he was about to step into. But one thing was clear. This was not just about a forgotten species. This was about uncovering a buried secret that could shake the entire galaxy. And now, he was right in the middle of it. Elias Carter had been in dangerous situations before. Diplomatic conflicts, high-stakes negotiations, even a few life-threatening encounters, but nothing compared to what he was facing now. He was standing in his guest quarters, staring at Zisha, the mysterious alien girl who had just told him the biggest secret in the galaxy. Proof. She had proof that the Galactic Council had lied, that they had done something to her people, the Elver, thousands of years ago. Elias crossed his arms. All right. I'm listening. What kind of proof are we talking about? Zisha hesitated for a moment, then reached into a small device on her wrist. With a tap, a holographic projection appeared in the air between them. The image showed a star system, its planets orbiting a bright yellow sun. But something was wrong. The third planet from the sun was missing. Or rather, it had been erased. Elias stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. What am I looking at? Zisha's voice was quiet but firm. This was our homeworld, Elveris. It existed thousands of years ago. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying an entire planet was destroyed? Zisha nodded. The Council does not speak of it. The official records say our world was lost to a natural disaster. But that is a lie. She tapped the hologram again. A new image appeared, old, distorted footage, as if it had been recovered from a broken data drive. It showed a massive fleet. Not Elveri ships, but those belonging to other galactic species. And they were attacking Elveris. Elias clenched his jaw. You're telling me the Council ordered the destruction of your home? Yes, Zisha whispered. And they erased all records of it. Elias felt anger bubbling inside him. He had met many alien leaders who claimed to be wise and just, but the Galactic Council was built on a lie, one they had kept buried for thousands of years. And now, Zisha was trying to bring the truth to light. That's why they fear us, she continued. Not because of our abilities, but because they know if we return, their secret will be exposed. Elias took a deep breath. Then we need to be careful. If the Council finds out what you're carrying, they won't just ignore you. They'll try to silence you. As if on cue, a deep alarm echoed through the station. Elias stiffened. That wasn't a normal summit announcement. That was an emergency alert. He quickly activated his communicator, tuning into the station's security feed. Security breach detected. Multiple intruders, armed and dangerous. Elias's instincts kicked in. He turned to Zisha. We need to move. Now. But before they could take a step, the door exploded inward. A large figure stepped through the smoke, a mercenary in heavy armor, his visor glowing red. He carried a sleek energy rifle aimed directly at Zisha. Elias reacted instantly, grabbing Zisha's wrist and diving behind the couch as a blast of plasma shot past them, burning a hole through the wall. Stay down, Elias shouted. The mercenary's voice was distorted through his helmet. Give me the girl, human. Walk away, and I let you live. Elias gritted his teeth. They weren't even trying to hide their intentions. Whoever had sent this assassin didn't want negotiations or warnings. They wanted Zisha eliminated. Zisha looked at Elias, fear in her silver eyes. Elias made his decision. He grabbed a small, spherical device from his belt and tossed it toward the mercenary. A flash grenade. The room exploded with blinding white light, and the mercenary let out a grunt of surprise. Elias didn't waste time. He pulled Zisha up and ran. The station's corridors were chaos, security forces clashing with unidentified attackers, alarms blaring, diplomats and traders running for cover. This wasn't just for us, Elias realized. Someone's trying to take control of the summit. Zisha's breathing was fast. The council. I know. Elias cut in. We need to get to someone we can trust. He tapped his communicator. Captain Carter to Commander Rowe. Come in. A voice crackled back. Carter, where the hell are you? We're getting reports of a coordinated attack. Yeah, no kidding. Elias snapped. I need an extraction. Now. Docking Bay 14. Rowe replied. I'll have a ship ready, but you better hurry. Elias grabbed Zisha's hand. We need to move. They sprinted through the corridors, dodging stray plasma blasts and leaping over fallen debris. The station was under siege, and it wasn't just Zisha the attackers were after. This was a coup. As they turned a corner, 2 more mercenaries stepped into their path, weapons raised. Elias cursed, but before they could fire, a blur of silver and violet moved past him. Zisha raised her hand, and for the first time, Elias saw what made the Elver truly dangerous. A shimmering wave of energy pulsed from her fingertips, wrapping around the mercenaries like a shifting mirage. They froze, completely motionless. Elias stared. What did you? They're fine, Zisha said quickly, but they won't be moving for a while. Elias exhaled. Remind me never to make you mad. They reached Docking Bay 14 just as a sleek, black ship landed with a hiss of steam. The ramp lowered, and a tall, armored figure waved them in. Commander Rowe, one of Elias's most trusted allies. Elias and Zisha dashed inside as the engines roared to life. As the ship lifted off, Elias looked down at the burning chaos of the summit below. This was no longer about diplomacy. This was war. And now, humanity was part of it. The ship's engines roared as they broke free from the station's gravitational pull. Through the viewing window, Elias Carter watched as the galactic summit faded into the void of space. Below, explosions rocked the massive structure, and emergency lights flickered across its surface. Looks like the Council lost control, Commander Rowe muttered, adjusting the ship's course. Elias turned to Zisha. She was seated in the co-pilot's chair, her silver eyes staring at the distant battlefield with a mix of fear and determination. The attack on the summit had not been random. It had been planned. And Zisha was at the center of it all. All right, Elias said, rubbing his temples. We're officially in deep trouble. That happened the moment I trusted you, Zisha replied, glancing at him. Elias let out a dry chuckle. Fair point. He looked over at Rowe. Status. The commander's fingers moved over the controls. We're clear for now. But I'm detecting pursuit ships. Looks like someone really wants us dead. Elias exhaled. Can you lose them? Rowe smirked. Please. They don't call me the best pilot in the fleet for nothing. The ship banked sharply, diving toward a dense asteroid field. The pursuing ships followed, their weapons lighting up the darkness. Plasma bolts streaked through the void, narrowly missing them. Zisha tensed. They won't stop. Elias nodded, which is why we need to disappear. Rowe, get us somewhere safe. Already on it, Rowe muttered, angling the ship toward a large asteroid. As they approached, a hidden hangar opened within the rock, and their ship slipped inside just as the entrance sealed shut. A moment of silence followed. Then, Zisha let out a shaky breath. We're safe, for now. Elias turned to her. We need answers. Now. She hesitated, then slowly nodded. You saw the proof. My home was not destroyed by nature. It was erased. By the Council and their allies. Elias frowned. But why? Why go to such extreme lengths to wipe out your entire species? Zisha's voice was quiet. Because we were the last ones who knew the truth. Rowe crossed his arms. What truth? Zisha's silver eyes met Elias's. That the Galactic Council is not the first to rule this galaxy. That there was another civilization before them. and that they destroyed it to take power. A heavy silence filled the cockpit. Elias's mind raced. If this was true, then the entire foundation of the Galactic Council was a lie. Zisha continued. Long ago, before the Council existed, there was an empire called the Velkar Dominion. They were advanced, more advanced than any civilization today. But then, something happened. The Council tells everyone that the Velkar simply collapsed, that they faded into history. But my people knew the truth. Elias leaned forward. What truth? Zisha exhaled. They were betrayed. The species that formed the Council worked together to wipe out the Velkar and take their place. But my ancestors, the Elver, were witnesses. We knew what happened. We had the records, the history. We were supposed to preserve the truth. Ro let out a low whistle. And that's why they came after you. They didn't just want to erase your world. They wanted to erase your history. Zisha nodded. They turned us into a myth, a lost species, a legend. They hid our records, erased our technology, and scattered our survivors. And for thousands of years, they succeeded. She clenched her fists. Until now. Elias rubbed his chin. And you have proof of all this? Yes, Zisha said. Hidden data caches, preserved documents, ancient recordings. I recovered as much as I could before coming here. Elias exhaled. This changed everything. If this information got out, the entire galaxy would turn against the Council. Civilizations that had followed their leadership for centuries would rise in rebellion. But before they could act, something beeped on the control panel. Ro checked the scanners. His expression turned serious. We've got company. Elias tensed. Council ships. No, Ro said. Worse. The screen displayed a massive warship approaching the asteroid. It was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Dark, sleek, and radiating power. Zisha's face went pale. That's not the Council. That's... Before she could finish, a voice crackled over the ship's communicator. Unidentified vessel. This is the warship Obsidian Fang. You are harboring a fugitive of the highest order. Surrender her now, or be destroyed. Elias's grip tightened. Who the hell are these guys? Zisha swallowed hard. They are the true enforcers of the Council's will. The ones who erased my people. The ones who have been hunting us for centuries. Elias's heartbeat quickened. How do we fight them? Zisha's expression was grim. We don't. Elias exchanged a glance with Ro. Then, the warship fired. The asteroid base shook violently, alarms blaring. Metal groaned as explosions rocked the structure. Ro gritted his teeth. We need to get out of here. Now. Elias grabbed Zisha's hand. Hold on. Ro slammed the ship's controls, activating the emergency warp drive just as another blast struck. The universe around them blurred. And then, in an instant, they were gone. The ship lurched violently out of warp, throwing Elias Carter against his seat. Warning alarms blared, and sparks flew from an overheated control panel. Report, Elias shouted, gripping the armrests. We made the jump, Ro grunted, wrestling with the controls. But that last blast fried half our systems. We're lucky we didn't get torn apart mid-warp. Elias exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Where are we? Ro checked the scanners. A dead zone. No official records, no space traffic. Just us, and a whole lot of nothing. Elias turned to Zisha, who sat silently, staring at the starfield outside. Her silver eyes were filled with worry. And something else. Zisha, Elias asked, you okay? She took a deep breath, then looked at him. We're close. Close to what? The truth. Elias exchanged a glance with Ro. You want to be a little more specific. Zisha stood and walked over to the navigation console. With a few taps, a star map appeared, displaying their current location. This system, she said, pointing to a distant region. There's something here. Something hidden. Ro frowned. Hidden how? Zisha's voice was quiet. A relic of the past. Something my people protected. Elias leaned forward. And you think it survived? Zisha nodded. If it's still there, it could prove everything. The Council's lies. The destruction of my world. The lost empire that came before them. She looked at Elias. But it's also dangerous. Elias chuckled dryly. Everything we've done so far has been dangerous. Ro sighed. All right, let's see what's so special about this place. He adjusted their course, and the ship hummed as it began moving toward the unknown system. A forgotten world. Hours later, they arrived. A massive planet loomed before them. Shrouded in thick clouds, it was silent, lifeless, floating in the void like a ghost of the past. Elias stared at it. What is this place? Elver's twin, Zisha whispered. Our second world, lost to history. Ro checked the scanners. No life signs, no signals, just ruins. Elias nodded. Then let's go exploring. The ship descended through the thick atmosphere. Lightning crackled across the sky, illuminating the surface below. As they broke through the clouds, Elias saw it, a vast, ancient city, stretching for miles. It was abandoned. The buildings were covered in dust and time, but their design was unmistakable. Tall, elegant towers, etched with symbols that pulsed faintly in the dim light. Ro whistled. This place is massive, and definitely not made by humans. Elias grabbed his gear. Let's move. The heart of the mystery. The air was thin but breathable as they stepped onto the surface. The silence was deafening. No wind, no life, just the quiet hum of forgotten history. Zisha led the way, her footsteps sure despite the ruined pathways. This way, she said, guiding them toward the largest structure, a massive temple-like building with a sealed entrance. Elias examined the door. How do we open it? Zisha placed her hand against the ancient symbols. A faint glow spread beneath her fingertips, and then the door rumbled. Dust fell as ancient mechanisms awoke, and the entrance slid open. Elias exchanged a look with Ro. That's never a good sign. They stepped inside. The revelation. The interior was dark, but as they walked forward, lights flickered to life. Soft, glowing panels lining the walls. Then, at the center of the chamber, a hologram activated. A tall figure appeared, draped in flowing robes. It was not Elver. It was something older. The voice that spoke was calm but powerful. To those who find this message, you stand in the last archive of the Velkar Dominion. Elias froze. The Velkar, the ancient empire Zisha had spoken about. The figure continued. We were betrayed. The ones who called themselves allies turned against us. They feared our knowledge, our power. And so, they destroyed us. Zisha's hands trembled. It's true. The hologram flickered. If you are listening to this, then the war is not over. The ones who took our place still rule, but they fear the return of the past. Elias clenched his fists. The council. Yes, the voice confirmed. And if you wish to end their reign of lies, you must remember this. They are not the true rulers of this galaxy. They never were, and they never will be. The message ended, and silence filled the room. Elias turned to Zisha. This is it. This is the proof you needed. Zisha nodded, her expression hardening. Now we just have to survive long enough to use it. But before anyone could speak, the ground shook violently. Ro cursed. That's never good. Elias checked his communicator. A warning signal flashed. Incoming ships, he muttered. We've been followed. Zisha's face turned pale. They found us. Outside, dark ships descended through the storm clouds, the same warships that had chased them before. Elias pulled his weapon. Looks like we're making a stand. Ro grinned. Wouldn't be the first time. Zisha took a deep breath. Then let's make sure this fight means something. As the enemy ships opened fire, Elias knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The ground beneath them shook again, sending dust flying into the air. Elias Carter's heart raced as he looked around the ancient Velkar temple. The quiet serenity of the ruins was gone, replaced by the heavy tension of an impending battle. The enemy ships had arrived, and they weren't here to negotiate. Zisha's silver eyes were wide, her usual calm replaced by a raw sense of urgency. We have to leave. Now. Elias gritted his teeth. We can't. Not yet. Ro's voice cut through the tension. He's right. We've come too far to run. We've got the proof we need, but it's useless if we don't make it out alive. Zisha took a deep breath. You're right. We fight. Elias nodded. Exactly. Let's make sure they don't take this from us. Outside, the enemy ships hovered, massive and ominous, blocking out the weak sunlight. The air was thick with the sound of their engines, like the growl of a predator about to strike. Ro tapped a few buttons on the ship's control panel, bringing up a holographic map of their surroundings. We're not getting out the easy way, but there's a cave system a few miles from here. If we can make it to the entrance, we might stand a chance. Elias's mind raced. They didn't have much time. How do we get there? Ro pointed to the temple's hidden door, barely visible in the wall. There's a secret passage that leads to the surface, but we'll have to move fast. Without another word, they ran toward the exit. The door opened with a soft hiss, revealing a narrow, dark corridor. As they moved through the passage, the distant sound of enemy ships' weapons firing filled the air, signaling they weren't alone anymore. A desperate escape. The passage led them outside, to the rugged terrain of the planet's surface. The storm had intensified, with dark clouds swirling ominously above. The wind howled as it whipped past them, adding to the chaos of the moment. Zisha's eyes scanned the sky, her body tense. They're closing in. Elias looked around. We need cover. Ro pointed ahead. There, the caves are just over that ridge. Without wasting time, they sprinted toward the rocky ridge, the sound of enemy ships growing louder behind them. Elias's mind raced. They had the proof they needed. The truth about the lost empire, the Velkar, and the Council's betrayal. But none of that would matter if they didn't make it out alive. The ground shook again, and a blast of energy hit the ground just a few meters away, sending them all stumbling. Ro cursed under his breath, pulling his blaster from his belt. They're getting too close. Elias didn't wait for the next blast. He grabbed Zisha's arm and pulled her forward. Come on. We can't stop now. They reached the caves, the entrance barely visible through the storm. Ro activated the entrance mechanism, and the cave door slid open with a loud groan. They rushed inside, the cool air a welcome change from the burning heat outside. But as soon as they stepped inside, Elias felt something strange. The air felt charged, almost as if the very walls were alive. Zisha was already a few steps ahead, her face grim as she glanced back at him. This way, she said, leading them deeper into the cave. The hidden truth. The cave system was vast, filled with twisting tunnels and ancient carvings on the walls. The deeper they went, the more Elias felt like they were walking through a forgotten world. He could almost feel the weight of the history that had been hidden for so long. Zisha stopped at a large stone door, its surface covered in intricate patterns. She pressed her hand against it, and the door slowly creaked open, revealing a large chamber beyond. Inside, a massive hologram flickered to life, projecting a 3D map of the galaxy. But this wasn't the map they knew. This was something older, showing star systems that had been wiped from the galactic records. This is it, Zisha whispered. This is the heart of the Velkar Dominion, their archives. Elias's eyes widened. You mean this is where they stored all their knowledge? Yes. Zisha's voice was soft, almost reverent. This is what the Council was trying to erase. Ro stepped forward, his eyes scanning the map. So if we take this information back, we could expose the Council for what they really are. Elias nodded. Exactly. But first, we need to get out of here before those ships find us. Zisha's eyes flickered to the ceiling. They're already here. Elias felt a cold chill run down his spine. What do you mean? Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed through the cave. Low and steady, they were the sound of something coming to claim what was theirs. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and cloaked in dark armor. The leader of the enemy force. He stepped into the light, revealing a face that was almost too perfect. Angular features, cold eyes, and a mouth that barely twitched into a smile. So the humans have joined the fight, he said, his voice smooth and calculated. How? Amusing. Elias's hand instinctively reached for his blaster. Who are you? I am the one who will end this foolish rebellion, the figure said coldly. You are playing a dangerous game, human. Zisha's face tightened. You were part of the group that erased my people. The figure smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. I was one of the executors of the final plan. It's a pity your species didn't understand the stakes. Elias stepped forward, his voice firm. And now we know the truth. You can't stop us. The figure's smile faded, and his hand moved to his side. I don't need to stop you. The obsidian fang will handle that. Suddenly, the cave shook once again, and the walls seemed to vibrate with power. We're running out of time, Elias said, his voice urgent. Get to the ship. Ro grabbed Zisha's arm. Move. As the enemy commander raised his weapon, Elias knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the galaxy's future. And they weren't going down without a fight. The cave trembled as the enemy commander stepped forward, his dark armor gleaming in the dim light. Elias Carter's heart pounded in his chest as he sized up the threat. The figure before him wasn't just a soldier. He was someone who had a hand in erasing entire civilizations. And now he was here to finish what he had started. You think you can stop me? The enemy commander said, his voice cold and detached. He raised his weapon, its barrel glowing with the energy of an incoming blast. Zisha's eyes narrowed. We've already won, she said, her voice steady. The truth is out there now. No matter what you do, the galaxy will know who you are. The commander's lip curled into a smile. But it wasn't one of amusement. It was the smile of someone who believed they were untouchable. You're naive. The truth, that won't save you. The obsidian fang is already on its way to wipe out your little resistance. Elias's mind raced. He had to think fast. They couldn't fight this man here, not with their ship still far from the caves and the enemy's forces closing in. But they also couldn't let him leave with the ancient data that could change everything. Ro stepped forward, his blaster aimed directly at the commander. I'd say the truth has already caught up with you. We're not going anywhere. The commander's eyes flickered with annoyance. You really think you stand a chance? Elias acted fast. Ro, cover us. Zisha, let's move. With that, Elias grabbed Zisha's arm and pulled her toward the back of the chamber, where the map of the Velkar Dominion's archives still glowed. The commander hesitated, his attention divided between them and Ro, who was positioning himself to make a shot. As they reached the back of the chamber, Zisha turned to Elias. We need to upload the data to the ship's core. It's the only way we can keep it safe. Elias nodded. We'll have to do it quickly. Zisha rushed to a nearby terminal, her fingers flying over the controls. The screen flickered before coming to life, revealing the ancient Velkar data. She looked over at Elias. If we can get this to the ship, we can leave before the commander gets to us. But we need a distraction. Elias turned to look at Ro, who was still keeping the commander occupied. The commander raised his weapon, aiming at Ro, who was crouched behind a large stone pillar. A bright flash of energy shot out, narrowly missing Ro. Now's our chance, Elias said. Get to the terminal, Zisha. Zisha nodded. tapping a few more commands into the terminal. The data began uploading at an incredible speed, but Elias knew they didn't have much time. They were still deep in enemy territory, and the obsidian fang wasn't far behind. Suddenly, the ground shook again, this time with far more force. The enemy commander had thrown everything into his attack. But Elias had no intention of going down without a fight. Ro's voice came through their comms. "I've got a plan. Just finish up and get to the ship. I'll keep them busy." Zisha's fingers flew across the terminal as the upload continued. "It's almost done. Just a little longer." Elias turned back to the battlefield. Ro had managed to get closer to the enemy commander, his blaster shots ringing out in the air. The commander was clearly frustrated, but he didn't back down. They were both locked in a deadly dance, each trying to outsmart the other. Just as the upload bar reached 100%, the terminal beeped to signal the completion of the transfer. Zisha breathed a sigh of relief. "Done." "Great," Elias said, his voice tight. "Now let's get to the ship." They turned to leave, but the commander was already blocking the exit. His eyes gleamed with cold satisfaction. "Leaving so soon? You're not going anywhere." Elias gritted his teeth. They were cornered. The only way out was through him. "We don't have time for this," Elias said. "Move, or I'll make you." The commander smirked, raising his weapon once more. "You think you can take me?" Elias stepped forward, his blaster drawn. "I think we'll find out." The commander lunged first, firing a deadly energy blast. Elias dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the shot. He rolled to his feet, aiming at the commander. The two exchanged fire, each shot narrowly missing the other. Ro took his opportunity, rushing forward to help. Together, Elias and Ro flanked the commander, forcing him into a corner. But the enemy commander was no fool. He made a sudden move, taking Ro by surprise. With a swift motion, he disarmed Ro, sending the blaster flying across the room. Elias's pulse quickened. He had to act fast. Without thinking, Elias launched himself at the commander, tackling him to the ground. The two struggled, each trying to overpower the other. Elias's hands locked around the commander's throat, but the commander wasn't giving up easily. His armored hands pushed against Elias's chest, trying to throw him off. Zisha's voice rang out behind them. "Elias." Elias turned just in time to see Ro grab the blaster from the ground and aim it at the commander. "Get down," Ro shouted. Elias dove to the side as a shot rang out, hitting the commander square in the chest. The enemy leader gasped in shock, his body going limp. Zisha ran forward, her face filled with determination. "Is he?" "He's done," Ro said. "Now, let's get out of here." The three of them didn't waste another moment. They rushed through the exit and toward the ship, with the roar of enemy ships still echoing in the distance. Once inside the ship, Ro slammed the door shut, locking it behind them. He immediately moved to the controls, starting the engines. "We're not safe yet," Ro said, his voice focused. "We need to move. Now." Zisha turned to Elias, her face filled with both relief and determination. "We've done it. We have the truth now." Elias nodded, but his eyes remained focused on the stars ahead. "The fight is far from over. We've only just begun."